An area of Los Angeles has now burned to the ground bigger than the entire city of Paris put together. But that's not all. It turns out, folks, that social justice fire hydrants do not squirt out water. They squirt out equity. And that equity is that everybody loses their homes. Today we'll tell you the sad story of what's happening in Los Angeles and why California, indeed even Hollywood, are unlikely to ever be the same again.
You call it powered by equity, and I know that it's been really important for the DWP to put an equity lens on everything.
Yes. Yeah, and that's the number one thing that attracted me to this role.
Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we, as ever, endeavor to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, and today we're talking about the throne of entertainment itself. Los Angeles, the city of angels, right now looking like a hellscape, and it's getting worse. And folks, this is a video that's probably going to make you a little bit unhappy. The content we're going to cover today, there's a lot of human suffering here that's unnecessary. We hate to talk about it, we hate it, but we don't want suffering to continue. It is our modus operandi, is to limit the amount of suffering that happens. We want people to be as well and as happy and as good and as prosperous as they can be. LW Ghost, it's great to see you, though. We're happy to have you aboard. How are you?
Doing better and better every day, I think. But what do I know?
Now, that's a trajectory I can get behind. Folks, we can get behind you clicking the like button, and here we go with the topic of the day out of CNN. Total area burned in Los Angeles fires, now bigger than the city of Paris. Read it to you. The total area burned by the Palisades, Eaton, and Hearst fires is approximately 38,629 acres as of 2:30 a.m. Eastern, according to figures released by CAL FIRE. That roughly equates to 60 square miles. The city of Paris is 40 square miles, meaning the fires have burned through an area of land bigger than the capital of France. The Palisades fire alone is approximately 37 square miles, according to CAL FIRE. Now, you can also, for those of you who are not familiar with Le Paris, you could compare this to Walt Disney World Resort. 40 square miles is essentially the same size as Walt Disney World. It's also, by the way, about the same size as Manhattan. So if any of those ring a bell, if you're familiar with the size of them, that's how much has burned, and the destruction has been immense. Lou, you're familiar with this area of the country very well. Would you like to describe what it is that has been burned to the ground by human incompetence, essentially?
What is it now? Several tens of thousands of structures. I think the current death toll is 24 and rising, and it will. Lots of famous stuff. The most striking to me, only because it was such a beautiful, historical, and lovely place, is Will Rogers' home. And if you know the Disney cartoon of the polo game with all the Disney cartoons of celebrities playing polo, along with Mickey and Donald, I think, is in it. That's the polo field that burned. That was Will Rogers Park.
I did not realize that had burned down.
Yeah, the house is gone, and it was just gorgeous. It was just spectacular. And anyway, the thing I was remarking when I mentioned I was going to be talking with you again about the fire that my darling spouse reminded me of when we went through, and I've lived through one of these fires, was how fast they are. They are amazingly fast. And to give you an idea, we had gone to sleep at about 9:30 without being able to see any glow in the sky or smell any smoke. We knew there was a fire out there somewhere. And they told us, well, maybe, but no biggie yet. At 9:30, we went to bed. At midnight, they were in the streets with loudspeakers telling us, get the hell out now. And in 22 or 23 minutes, we were in the car and driving out the gate of our gated community. And that was right when the firemen were told, drop your hoses and run. And as I've mentioned on a couple of the shows, but not everybody hears all of them, when we came back in a couple of days, those big, heavy brass nozzles that are on fire hoses were melted as flat as a pancake from the heat. That's how intense these things are and how fast they can spread. So if you are there and you are any of the surrounding areas and thinking, well, I don't know, get your important stuff together, get it in the car, and be ready, if not out. Nothing a looter can do to your house is worse than losing your life or being injured. And just remember that and get out ahead of it, because they spread like, as the saying goes, wildfire.
And that's very well said, Lou. And by the way, folks, if you want to know how you can make these things go even faster, don't have water.
There you go.
Maybe have a Los Angeles water chief who gets paid $750,000 a year who says something like this. Hang on to this, folks. I want you to listen to it, and then hang on to it, because the next article, when we read it and you remember what's in this, if you're anything like me, it's going to make you unhappy. And I hate to make you unhappy, but it's the job of the day, because we don't want this to happen again if we can at all avoid it. Here we go.
You call it powered by equity, and I know that it's been really important for the DWP to put an equity lens on everything.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the number one thing that attracted me to this role. Coming from
This person is supposed to make sure there's water in the fire hydrants. That's the only job. Put water in the fire hydrants.
Water and power. Remember, a lot of these things allegedly get started because the power poles are old and they fall down in the wind. Well, that's DWP's purview also.
Right, exactly. Let's play it again, though, folks. Listen closely. Water in the fire hydrants.
That's the number one thing that attracted me to this role. Coming from the communities that I come, seeing what I've seen through my career in utilities and through the military. I've been in the Coast Guard 19 and a half years now, so I got 6 more months to qualify for my 20 years, which was my original goal.
Wow, congratulations, and thank
you
you for your service.
Thank you. It's important to me that everything we do, it's with an equity lens and social justice, and making sure that we right the wrongs that we've done in the past from an infrastructure perspective, and that we involve the community in that process. And this utility is serious about it, is authentic about it. And so I'm just super excited to be part of that move.
$750,000 a year, that's the salary. And apparently, instead of putting water in the hydrants, those were social justice hydrants. So social justice hydrants, Lou, I don't know if you've ever dealt with a social justice hydrant before, but apparently it doesn't output water. So,
well,
it'll
rainbow water maybe, but
well, they achieved equity though.
And by the way, gosh, I can't imagine why she left the Coast Guard with 6 months short of her 20 for $750,000 in
can't imagine.
fame.
Lou, they achieved equity though. Everybody's got just as much as the other person when everybody's stuff is burned down.
Yeah, that's
They got the equity. Out of CBS News, folks, keep in mind what you just heard. Former child actor Rory Sykes killed in LA fires as water ran dry, his mother says. This is an absolutely heartbreaking story. I'll read it, and we're going to read it with the due respect, which is absolutely given. An Australian mother has spoken of how she tried in vain to save her blind son from the Los Angeles area wildfires as water supplies ran dry. Shelley Sykes, a TV production entrepreneur, told Australian media of a desperate battle to save her 32-year-old son, Rory Sykes, who had cerebral palsy. Wind-fanned wildfires have killed at least 24 people. Sykes said on social media that she and her son lived on a 17-acre estate in Malibu, a beachside city. Rory, who appeared in British TV show Kitty Capers in the 1990s, had his own self-contained cottage on the estate. Her son was blind and had difficulty walking. Rory's feet with the heat had started to swell and he couldn't walk very well. And he also had problems with his tummy, so he didn't want to be far away from the bathroom. So he said, "Mom, you go, I'm staying." Sykes said she could not leave her son alone on the estate. "I stayed in the main property with my two birds in a bathroom because it was hard to breathe, sitting on the floor with bottled water and trying to keep wet." She said she saw embers on the roof of her son's cottage and tried to extinguish them with a hose. Listen to this, folks. There was no water coming out. She then drove to the closest fire station seeking help, but was told they, too, had no access to water. Water hydrants in some Los Angeles neighborhoods ran dry during the initial effort to fight the blazes, sparking widespread anger among residents. When the fire department took Sykes back to her property, she found the cottage had been reduced to black ash. There was nothing there. Sykes, who shared her birthday with her son, said she was overwhelmed by his death. "I am just devastated. It is unreal at this moment. I cannot breathe." Fire authorities said he died from carbon monoxide poisoning, which would be better than the alternative. She said that she had a broken arm. She couldn't lift him. She couldn't move him. So she didn't have water. Fire department didn't have water. apparently the police didn't come by and offer to evacuate these people. And that would seem to be a bare minimum, is that if you're going to have evacuation, you need to send local authorities to help out the elderly and those who have mobility issues. Doesn't seem like that happened. This is an all-around tragedy. And Lou, I want to play one more thing, and then I'll go to you. And I know this is a very difficult one because this is just unnecessary tragedy at a huge scale. This is the assistant fire chief for Los Angeles. I want to play this for you and then get your commentary on what we've just read about and what we've just listened to.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Lou, I'll hand it to you. I'm incensed. I'm really, this bothers me tremendously.
You know what gets me? Obviously, this is all very tragic and very avoidable if anybody had any sense with any of these people. It's not that they believe this crap. It's that they're so proud to say it to the world and think everybody believes the way they do. And think, do they ever expect there to be a real fire where those theories will be tested by reality this way? Or do they just think, well, I've survived and gotten attention and gotten rank or whatever and money by doing this. I'll just keep on doing it. By the way, in the case of DWP, I have nothing like the terrible handicap that this young man had who died. But we were able to give, back in the day, a notice to the DWP that I had CPAP issues, so that if they were going to cut power, they would know that they needed to get it on for me to be able to sleep and breathe. That was before I had one as I do now with a battery backup. And they took that notice. There was a system in place for that. So why nobody knew that there was this handicapped guy there who needed help in an emergency and then gave it to him, even without water? They could have gone and gotten him and taken him out. But nope. Now,
Lou, you escaped L.A. And I say that phrase purposefully. But what happened to me is that Los Angeles and more broadly, large parts of California, we have watched, and this is why we fought so hard to save entertainment. And then as sort of part of that, perhaps this was really our intent all along. Don't tell anybody, but we fought against it in entertainment. We fought against DEI and wokeism in the broader society. It's because we watched, and in California, they wiped out what was a semi-paradise in a single generation. They wiped out, you had people singing songs about California for generations. And in just 2 decades, they took Hollywood and they made it a place that people make fun of now. We're not making fun of it right now because of the suffering that's happening, but nobody really, nobody is allured by the Golden State anymore.
Well, it's interesting. I was watching an interview with the great historian and political analyst, Victor Davis Hanson. And they asked him, do you think this will change some of these people's minds? And he said, look, these very, very wealthy people, like, for example, we saw one or more, who hired private firemen at $2,400 an hour to protect their building. That's something everybody can do, right? Anyway, he said, when they talk about the taxes, these people don't care if it's 10% or 13% because they can afford it. What they are beginning to care about is regulation, because the regulations might keep the businesses that keep them rich from doing what they need to do. So there might be a change from purely self-interest in some of these people when it comes to the regulatory regime. By the way, I was mentioning on some of the shows people ask, how long is it going to take for people to rebuild if they can? And that's the big if, of course, being, are they insured? Will the insurance pay off? The insurance companies have been driven out of California left and right by ridiculous regulations that say, no, you can't do what insurance does, which is assess the risk and charge premiums accordingly. We won't let you. And they say, well, then we won't do business there. But if you had insurance and if you were ready to rebuild, First thing you have to do is rebuild to current regulatory standards. And just getting the permits could take 2 to 3 years. Or do you just say, screw it, and move to Vegas? Do you say, screw it, move to someplace close where you can still visit the kids and the grandparents or whoever who live in other parts of Southern California, but where you're not dealing with all of that? So now I see Gavin has temporarily waived some of these requirements for rebuilding. But again, that's imperial power saying, well, I passed these laws to limit you, but I will for you and a couple of you and the guys who like me give you a break. That's not America. They talk about threats to democracy all the time in Washington. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so political, but it's a rights thing. It's a core value thing. It's not about any particular personality on the left or the right.
Well, take a look at this, Lou.
It's going to be hell.
This is out of, and it is. It's out of NPR, bastions of truth that they are. It says why Los Angeles, America's most fire-ready city.
Oh, really? Since when?
Became overwhelmed by flames. This is by Kirk Siegler from the National Propaganda Resource Center of NPR. I think that's what it stands for, National Propaganda Resources. And so this is the game the media is about to play, folks. This came out yesterday. This is the game that's going to be played. Los Angeles could not have stopped this. Now, remember that those social justice fire hydrants squirting out their equity were unable to quench the flames, but nobody could have done this other than the other 49 states where when a fire starts, they put the fire out. And sometimes these things do happen where it gets out of control, but in the other 49 states, it doesn't happen every single year. So, but again, the game the media is going to play is to say this was unprecedented. This was climate change. It says the biggest of several wildfires still burning out of control in Los Angeles grew by more than 1,000 acres overnight. At least 319,000 people are now under evacuation orders. Clayton Colbert has good perspective on that. A Malibu resident of 45 years, he stayed behind when the Palisades fire exploded, figuring he could pump water from his oceanfront home to douse hotspots igniting from embers. That's our fire hoses there, he says, pointing to his do-it-yourself setup. We saw this coming. He's exhausted with black rings of ash under his eyes. He's relieved that his home between Pacific Coast Highway and the beach is still standing. As we speak, his neighbor's home is engulfed in flames. 2 firefighters and an engine can't save it. He says, I've been doing this for 48 hours or more. There was a period here for 24 hours where there wasn't a fire truck. And it goes on to say, listen, if you look and see what happened in the Palisades and everywhere else, there could be 6,000 firefighters and it wouldn't be enough. Still, the political finger-pointing has begun over whether more could have been done sooner. Asked about recent budget cuts, LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley told CBS News that did hamper some training and disaster preparedness. We've covered that. We won't cover it again. This article goes on to say, basically, that there's nothing that could have stopped this. De Guzman, who is an quote-unquote expert used in the article, says, climate change is accelerating the extremes, Lou. The past 2 years have been extraordinarily wet, building up vegetation. But this year, no rainy season at all so far. So, Lou, you have 2 years of extraordinary rainfall and precipitation.
So the obvious question is that the time you shut down reservoirs to hold the water?
You got to release it all.
Is that the time when you literally, as Gavin Newsom did in some cases, dynamite existing dams, let alone not build the ones that have already been funded by law for years to hold more?
You got to put it all back in the Pacific. You can't hang on to it, Lou, not for a second, because the moment you hang on to the water, the moment you decide that you're going to get people of competency in roles of leadership, that's when climate change is waiting to strike you like a viper behind a rock. And it's just ready to get you at any moment. That sneaky darn climate change. Anyway,
this idiot on the screen here. Oh, it's better if people look like you when they come to put out your fire. No, it's better if they put out the fire. I don't care what they look like.
I got a feeling people with cerebral palsy are not looking for people with cerebral palsy to come through the door as firefighters.
Right, or in wheelchairs, anyway.
That's not meant to make light, folks. I promise you. I mean, this infuriates me, the idea that people are suffering.
And by the way, I read one story, I forget where, they said that the people of Oregon sent 200 fire trucks down to try and help, but they stopped them in the Bay Area to have emission checks because, of course, being Oregon fire trucks, they didn't meet California emission standards.
Well, Lou, we covered that yesterday. It turns out it wasn't emissions.
Oh.
It was brake pads, Lou.
Oh, well, that's all different then.
You cannot have fire trucks with unsafe brake pads because California clearly has safety standards that Oregon could just never meet. California's so far ahead of everybody else.
You mean that red state, Oregon, somehow failed in this important manner? Meanwhile, people wonder, getting back to our bailiwick of entertainment, why now Warner Brothers and Sony, I read today, are going to build movie studios in Las Vegas.
Oh, I can't imagine. And I think, we'll come back to that. I want to get your thoughts on it at the end of this video. I want to know what you think about how many companies and individuals are going to say, I've had enough. Like, is this going to be the moment? Before we do, though, Lou, I want to show you this. This is out of Los Angeles, NBC affiliate there by Julia Yo. And Lou, they might not have water. They might not have competent people in leadership, but they have poetry. They've got poetry, Lou.
Well,
Los Angeles native, former poet laureate Amanda Gorman pens a touching poem for Hometown. So you don't have water, but you got a poem. I'm gonna read the poem for you. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll just brace myself for artistic excellence.
This is from Amanda Gorman, who is famous, we're told, for The Hill We Climb. I think she's kind of a political poet. Who'd have thought? 26-year-old activist. Oh, she's also an activist, Lou.
Well, who isn't at 26?
Exactly. I mean, they need to get Greta. They need to get Greta over here to really help out too.
Pro, how dare you?
Smoldering Dawn is the name of this poem. I'm going to read it in its entirety. In this smoldering dawn, we soldier on. We proved ourselves strong. Not by how badly we've been burned, by how bravely we bond. Apocalypse does not mean ruin, but revelation. In devastation, this infernus has injured us, but it cannot endure us. Even in surreal, we do not surrender.
Oh, my God. I won't count the poetic license, the invented words, and the grammar errors in there, but hey, it's poetry.
I could have done that in 5th grade.
Yeah. You could have spelled infernus, N-U-S, even in surreal. Well, where is surreal? Is that a town outside of Pacoima?
My mother would not put that on the refrigerator, Lou. That does.
It fails the mom's refrigerator test. Absolutely. I love it.
Doesn't get 4 gold star stickers out of the little sticker book to put on it. I'm sorry. And listen, if you're a poet, that's all you got. But there you go, folks. There's what they've got instead of water. Instead of water, they've got poetry, which is appropriate. And finally, and this is where I come back to the question, Lou, when it comes to, is this the moment when the realization happens that meritocracy matters, that competency counts, and will people have had enough, finally, of whatever this has been, this postmodern neo-Marxist, semi-communist, love letter that we've been having over in California for two decades. From U.S. Magazine, Celebrity News, I'm just going to go through the list of people whose homes have been impacted. Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson, Ben Affleck, Jennifer Aniston, Bradley Cooper, Reese Witherspoon, Adam Sandler, Michael Keaton, Miles Teller, Michael Mann, Anna Sarnoff, Alan Bergman, Kathleen Kennedy, Carol Lombardini, Sandra Lee, Kate Beckinsale, Cameron Matheson, Steve Gutenberg. By the way, he was doing a fantastic job. Shout out to him. He was doing a wonderful job moving vehicles. James Woods, whose house is still standing but is surrounded by smoldering ruin. Eugene Levy, Jennifer Love Hewitt, Whitney Cummings, Maria Shriver, Slow Down Pro, Mandy Moore, and Mark Hamill, Heidi Montag, Spencer Pratt. I can keep going, folks. We won't. Bottom line
the question is, if you are not a celebrity and your home has just been destroyed, and everything you own, all your memories, all your pictures, all your everything is gone with the wind, do you give a damn what so-called celebrity is in the same boat? Does that somehow make you equalized with these people? In my community, I guess it was about 3 or 4 houses down from me was Harv Bennett of, Star Trek management fame. There were other people there who had great careers. And I guarantee you their celebrity status didn't mean anything to either them when their house burned or to the people around them. But nowadays, boy, that's what sells newspapers, isn't it? Or virtual newspapers, if you want to call it that.
Is it the turnaround, though, Lou? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not here to sensationalize the conversation of the video. I'm here to say a lot of people who have a lot of megaphones have just suffered something that we don't wish on them at all. But I'm curious, do you think that this will either A, hasten the exodus out of California, or B, result in a turnaround where California, to some extent, gets its act together?
Well, I always go back to my favorite light bulb joke, which is, how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? Answer, only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change. Will these people move elsewhere? You bet, in a minute. Will it matter to the way California is governed? Maybe not. Maybe not. Because they are more concerned, most of them, about being with the cool kids than they are about their personal losses. And they'll all be insured. And all right, well, I lost a $10 million or $20 million home. Call my agent, get me another $20 million movie. And for 3 months, I'll go do what I do and get fawning attention from the press and from all my liberal friends, and we'll rebuild it somewhere. I just don't see this changing much of anything, unfortunately, because the people who can cope will, the people who can't still can't. And, there are political realities in California now that also augur against it. I don't know if you want to go into what's called the jungle primary. But California has always had a preponderance of blue over red as far as number of voters, although we've had some notable red leadership. Pete Wilson, certainly Arnold to some degree, Ronald Reagan was governor. But a primary election, usually in a sensible, rational society, pits all the Republicans against the Republicans and all the Democrats against the Democrats, and whoever gets to the top in each party runs in the final, right? But they have, and I think Alaska and a few other states have adopted and regretted.
I think Alaska might drop it real soon.
Yeah, they're talking about dropping it. They call it the jungle primary. And the idea is the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party. Well, in a state with so many more people voting on the Democrat side, that's liable to be 2 Democrats. And therefore, there's no Republican in the final, even as a representative. They talk about, oh, you're harming democracy. Well, what's that? The other unintended consequence of that, however, everybody's talking about how the old guard in Washington is finally going to age out and they'll need a bench of new people. Well, in my case, in my neighborhood in Sylmar, California, we had a city councilman and a state legislator running against each other in the final, both Democrats, which means they were fighting over the same consultants, the same donors, the same PR people. And when one wins, the other one has nowhere to go. They're history. So you winnow out the field of up-and-comers when that happens, and now they're left with only the people who survived that system. And their only claim to validity and fame is that they toe the line. So there are lots of reasons why this won't change things, and very few that it will. The one big one being common sense. But LA's never been noted for common sense. After all, it's a place where the dreamers and the crazies, and that's good artistically, but not if they can't put out a fire.
Well, you need water, and it turns out that equity squirting out of a social justice hydrant just doesn't do it. But folks, you can do it. Wherever you are, wherever you're listening to this, Make your community better by actually doing something good. Don't talk about it. Don't put on a baseball cap and go stand around and hope you get your picture taken and that's good enough. No. Go out there and make a dent in this world in a positive direction. You can do it. Don't just listen. Don't just condemn. Don't just judge, but be a part of the solution. That is you going out and being all about making the world a better place.
Speaking of you can do it, I'm going to recommend everybody go get Rob Schneider's new book, You Can Do It, the actor and comedian. It's great. And it goes into all of this in a fun, light, maybe a little crazy way. It's some parts of it are not ready for work, so to speak. But wow, is it a wonderful, wonderful examination of this whole thing from a comedian and showman's perspective. So there's my endorsement.
Wouldn't it be nice, Lou, if Mr. Schneider is listening right now and got a smile on his face saying, I can't believe it. Listen to that. Listen to that. But that's what Lou does, folks. That's the Lou that we love. And folks, go out there and get the book. Lou, one more time, what's the name of it?
You Can Do It.
You Can Do It. All right, folks. You can do it. And, a reference to the water boy right now is really appreciated.
There you go. Absolutely.
All right, folks, what else would be appreciated is a like button click by you. Like, share, subscribe, click it and stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on the situation. Be kind, be respectful, but free discourse is appreciated here. And folks, until the next time we have the honor of spending time with you, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.